faire respecter ces règles au sein de l'Union, je dirais, a fortiori. Je vous remercie en tout cas pour votre attention et je reste évidemment à votre disposition pour entendre vos interventions et répondre à vos questions.
Merci, Monsieur le Commissaire. We start now with the discussion. I have listed. Excuse me, I have listed a first speaking list and then a second, so it will be 2 minutes for the first, 1 minute for the second, individual responses for the first, joint responses for the second. Okay, but the first speaker I have listed is S&D Cyrus Enger. Although I'm corrected and someone would like to make the case for the EPP, it'll go first to Cyrus. Okay, that is the case. Cyrus Engerer. Is there anyone raising the hand for the EPP?
There is Maria Walsh, I believe.
I see. Would you? Of course, go ahead. It'll be, who will be?
Chair, I'll follow after Cyrus, as you've announced.
Okay, then it'll be Cyrus. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here with us. Commissioner, civil society in Hungary is currently under attack once again, and my question is simple. When is the Commission moving on from taking note of what is happening to actual concrete and effective action? Because as far as I recall, we have been discussing rule of law in Hungary since 2015, but instead of the situation getting better, like in other countries, the situation has somehow gotten even worse in Hungary. And unfortunately, today you tell us that you don't have any positive news for us today. While other countries take on our rule of law reports and adopt Venice Commission recommendations, working and striving to be a better version of themselves, the Hungarian government doubles down and makes things even worse, this time not only by ignoring EU LGBTIQ recommendation and the Court of Justice notes, but by orchestrating a referendum that just puts on hate on the LGBTIQ community in Hungary. Now, luckily, thanks to multiple civil society organizations and 1.6 million Hungarians, Orban's anti-gay referendum was deemed illegitimate, a clear cry of love in the face of Fidesz's hate. But regardless of the fact that hate may be lost in this referendum, the Hungarian government is now choosing to fine human rights organizations for encouraging people who promoted love. Colleagues, this play is not new. We have seen it before in the Foreign Affairs Committee, because the act of liquidating your adversary's assets in order to cripple them into silence is nothing more than a page out of Russia's playbook. The Russian LGBT network has repeatedly faced anti-propaganda fines from Orban's favorite influencer, Vladimir Putin. So in the face of this slap, Commissioner, how are you going to act? Because we have all the tools in place to take action, the rule of law conditionality mechanism specifically, but time and time again we see nothing from the Commission. So, Commissioner, this Parliament and European citizens have spoken. They want Orban to be sanctioned now. Thank you.
Thank you. Now it will be for Renew, Sophie Intveld. Excuse me, first you go to respond. First you go.
If you want, as you want, President.
No, but it'll be first the Commissioner to respond individually. Okay, you go ahead.
Okay, thanks. No, just to say that first of all about the so-called LGBTIQ law, so the law to protect the children, but we have said that we are sure that there are some discriminations in such a law. We have reacted very fast. And we have started the procedure to go maybe at the end before the court. So we'll continue, I said, to proceed, and we are in such a way because, of course, it was very important to find a good legal basis to do that and to introduce the procedure. But we have acted very fast. About NGO Transparency Act, you know that we have had also a success before the court in Luxembourg, and after 11 months it was possible to see, after 11 months, the repeal of the Transparency Act. But now there is a new regulatory framework in Hungary on transparency of NGOs, and so of course we are looking if it's possible to stay with such a new regulation, or if there are again some problems with the regulation. So be sure that about all the different facts that you have mentioned, we continue to follow the situation, and when it's needed, to act before the court, or of course to continue to act on the basis of your statement on the Article 7. But we are in the hands of the court. We have had a success about the Transparency Act, and we are hoping that we will have maybe in the future success on other elements. Of course, you have mentioned new elements concerning human rights defenders. We will continue to analyze it in close contact with civil society in Hungary.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now it'll be, would you go now? Mrs. Walsh,
yes,
for the EPP.
please.
There you go.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, Commissioner, and delighted to have you here. I'd firstly like to commend your decisive action in notifying Hungary with the letter, a formal notice when the anti-LGBTI law was adopted last year. As you know, and as many of us in this room know, the Commission delivered 3 reasoned opinions concerning the respect of rainbow community members and media, freedom of media in Hungary. I believe, though, you should have received a reply some point earlier this year. And I guess my first part of this question is, what steps are you taking to ensure that this anti-LGBTI law is brought before the Court of Justice? And in addition, why has the Commission not moved with the procedure of court? Or to your point there in terms of recommendations, what, as of today, are you seeing within that rule of law sharing that will happen at some point this year? This question is going to be asked over and over. But picking up from my colleague Cyrus just now, I'm delighted a large amount of voters deliberately invalidated their ballots to protest against the Fidesz referendum and show that they do not agree with the government's targeting of rainbow community members and its misleading questions. The Fidesz government is now suing NGOs, I've been told, who campaigned against the referendum, attempting to stifle their freedom of expression, and a total of 6 NGOs received fines amounting to a staggering €24,000. My question to you, Commissioner, is what action is the Commission taking to ensure that the shrinking space of civil society, and I welcome MEP Donath here who worked on this file, in Hungary is not closed entirely, making sure their CSOs are protected? And to conclude, Commissioner, backsliding on LGBTI rights unfortunately is not just happening in Hungary, while they are our leading example. It's also happening in other member states, Poland being one of them, even my own country of Ireland. And I must say, it's getting a bit tiresome as an LGBT advocate, person and community member myself when I meet with young people and they're asking what are we doing today to protect their futures of tomorrow. It's getting very tiresome, sir, that we do not have a core group of actions to stop this absolute nonsense against a rainbow community that deserve equality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now back to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, President. First of all, about the new law in Hungary last year, I said we have reacted very fast. We have received a reply of Hungary, and we continue to work on it. And I said we will continue to proceed. So we analyze when it will be possible to go to the court on the basis of the reaction of Hungary. And you know that we have had to find a legal basis to do that, because it's not enough to see a discrimination in the Charter of fundamental rights. It's also important to have a link with some EU laws, and we have said that to Hungary, and we continue to work on it and to try to prepare the procedure before the court. The second element I want to say that about the referendum, the protection I said of the minorities is against the majority. So it's not because you have a majority in the parliament that it's possible to organize a discrimination, but it's not because you have a majority in the population through a referendum that you have the possibility to organize a discrimination. I said it was not a success, the referendum. It was impossible to go further with that. And of course, we will continue to see how it's possible to react. And certainly the best way is before the court, because it's the most important element that we have in our hands. Like with other proceedings before, you know that we have had a very good position of the Court of Justice about the fine funding of NGOs and other kind, and the Transparency Act that I've mentioned just before. Of course, we try also to continue to help and to support the civil society, and you know that due to your support in the Parliament, we have now with the SURF programme the capacity to fund more and more civil society organisations on the ground. A last point about the rule of law report. First on Hungary, we are discussing now about the real country visit with Hungarian authorities, because it was suspended during the elections on the request of Hungary, but I have had the positive reaction of the Minister of Justice to restart the discussion, and so we'll have a good preparation we'll try, of the next edition of the Rule of Law report with recommendation. It's too early to say something about the recommendation. It will be in July this year. But about the situation in other member states, I confirm what I have said since 2 years now. Like for the discussions in the Council, I'm open to organise a discussion with the Parliament on the 27 member states, because we have a rule of law report on the 27 member states, and not only about 2 of them. In the Council, we are organising that in the General Affairs Council with every 6 months 5 member states in a peer review. But again, I'm very open. You mentioned your own country. I'm very open to organise a specific discussion to all the different member states, because we try to have an analysis on an equal footing for the 27. And this year, again, we'll come with a recommendation. But at your disposal.
Thank you. Now it'll go to Sophie in Veld. You got 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Commissioner, for being here. I have to say, having been in this House for quite a while, this is the umpteenth time we're having this debate, and I'm tired of it. And I would like to hear, for once, the Commission not talking about procedures and legal, and I'm not blaming you because I know where you stand personally, but this is a collective responsibility of the European Commission. And we are now in a situation where for 12 years this House has been warning about Orban. And look where we are now. He rigged the elections, so it's not a legitimate government. He's the agent of Putin, and we are talking about, oh, we'll send another letter, maybe we'll start another procedure. He doesn't care. What he is doing is textbook Orban. He's killing civil society. And this whole referendum was only meant to mobilise his base. It was always a red herring. So when is the Commission going to take out the big guns and sue the beep out of Hungary and the government and use all the tools that you have? No more letters, no more pussyfooting around, no more politeness. We do not want this kind of governments in the European Union. We have a duty to protect the rights of all the citizens. We have a duty to protect democracy. We have a duty to protect Article 2. I'm sorry, yes, I know you disagree. I'm happy you disagree. I'd be worried if you agree with me. We have a duty to protect democracy, and we need to do a lot more, be a lot more assertive. I'm counting on you, Commissioner.
Thank you, certainly, for your last sentence. Just to say that, first of all, we try in the Commission to use the different tools at our disposal. First of all, I have said we are going to the court when it's needed to do that, and you have seen that in different dossiers it was possible to have a positive reaction of the court in the situation concerning the situation in Hungary, and we continue to do that. It was my reaction about the so-called law to protect the children. And we'll continue to do that. And of course, we have a positive reaction not only in the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg, but if you look to the decisions of the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, we have more and more the same kind of analysis on both sides in justice. So, but it's all the time, I need to repeat that, on the request of the Commission, because it seems to be a decision without any intervention. We start the process, we go to the court, if we have had a positive reaction. Then we have tried, in the case of Hungary, to use other tools. The first one is the Recovery and Resilience Plan. You know that it's blocked. There is no approval, because we have to see real reforms in line with the country-specific recommendations. And we are now in the second year, because you know that last year it was possible to have prepayment in the execution of the plan. Now we are in 22. There is no more such a possibility to organise prepayment. And so we continue to discuss if it's possible to have a real guarantee about reforms. Until now, you have seen the plan is blocked. It's a decision of the Commission, because the Commission has to put the plan on the table of the Council or not. And then the conditionality, it was very clear. We have seen the request of the European Council to wait the decision of the Court of Justice. But you have seen we have started the process last November at the administrative level, and now it's very clear we'll go with a notification to the next step. But if it's not before the court, if it's not with an internal decision of the Commission, like for the Recovery and Resilience Plan, it will be at the Council level. we will go to the Council. You have tried in 2018 to do that with the Article 7. We are still in the procedure. If we use other tools, like maybe the conditionality, we will go again to the Council. The conditionality is that, with a qualified majority needed to take a decision. And so I'm hoping that we will have, I'm going there all the time, but we will have the same discussions here in the European Parliament and in the national parliament to support the process and to be sure that in the Council we will have a support from many member states if we engage the procedure. Because, again, we don't have any other choice. Or to go to the court, or to take a decision in the Commission, like for the plan, to block till now the approval, or to go to the Council. But in the Council, it will be in the hands of the member states to decide with certain types of majority. And you know, for Article 7, is 4/5 or for the sanctions unanimity, except the concerned member states. For the conditionality, it will be the qualified majority. And again, I'm hoping that it will be possible. I'm going there for the rule of law report. In all the national parliaments, it will be possible to have the same discussions at the national level, because it will be there, the pressure maybe to organize a decision at the Council level.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now we start with the second round of speaking list for this discussion. I have listed some of you. If there's anyone else, raise hand and make yourself. Excuse me.
One more.
Yeah. Excuse me. I was missing. I was still missing some members who joined the first speaking list. I'm sorry about that. It'll be Wendelis Delbos-Corfield now.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. Yes, I mean, already a lot has been said. It may be important to flag the fact that if the referendum got invalid, it's not just by pure chance. It's not just a miracle. It didn't happen like that. It's because people went canvassing everywhere in Hungary for weeks before. These people were sometimes in hostile environment. These people were even, sort of taking a bit of a danger, because it can be a threat in some places, and they did it, explaining what the referendum was about, explaining who they are, what LGBTI means, what they are going through. This was a huge work from some specific organization. And also, it is important to flag that even if it's invalid, we already know that it will be used by the government as a valid referendum. They have analyzed the results, even if it was clearly invalid, and like they did with the refugee referendum, they will use it in their propaganda as from now. And then third thing that has to be flagged is also how much it has an influence on Fidesz victory, because what people think now in Hungary, some people think, they clearly and really think, like some Russian can think that, Ukraine is the one that triggered the war. Well, some Hungarian people really think that we, Europe, are now ready to go and change the sex of children in little schools. And they really believe it. Because that's what 12 years of disinformation, huge propaganda, and end of media pluralism has meant. And what is happening now is a new step of criminalization of the NGOs. And this is not new. We have a record of this in Hungary. There was they are accused of being foreign interference, exactly like in the Russian context. We know that there was criminalization for those that help migrants and all this. There has been an attack on civil society and NGOs for a moment. And now, indeed, it has been said by my colleagues, we have this criminalization of these people that went out to make this referendum invalid and in some way, sort of helped Europe and saved our values. And I think that we are now in a very depressing situation, and I'm very, very worried. And I'm sometimes wondering, 28% of Hungarian people said they would leave the country if Fidesz was to win. Of course, we know that it won't be exactly the case, but it is very telling. In my country, in a few days, maybe an extreme white person will be elected as a president. And I'm sure that if you were to do a poll, you wouldn't have even 5% of the French saying that they would leave the country in that case. So how depressing the situation is. That's why we need to do something, because I'm really worried that we are just accepting the fact that we are resigning about this and we are leaving the country in this state and just waiting for people to leave, these very specific people that have been fighting. Now, what can we do about these fines? It has already been asked, but I really think that we should be creative, and I hope the Commission can do something about these fines. They have been given by the Hungarian National Election Commission to these NGOs. I am pretty sure that this is not in accordance with our rules, and then I would have a very simple question, is what will be the scope of the triggering of the rule of law mechanism? You have never been very detailed, the Commission, not you, but in general the Commission, on what exactly you will base your rule of law conditionality. Could you really elaborate on this, please? Thank you.
Over to you, Commissioner.
No, first of all, I have said that I didn't see any positive evolution in Hungary regarding the rule of law. Of course, I was speaking about the decision of the authorities. You were speaking about the civil society. There were some positive evolutions in the civil society, but it's not new. And certainly in the way to try to act against such a kind of referendum, because I have said before the referendum, I repeat after, a majority in the population is not enough to organize discrimination. Again, I want to repeat that the protection of the minorities against the majority, so we continue to work on it. What is possible to do? I don't want to repeat all, but again, the plan, the recovery and resilience plan, is blocked about Hungary due to the fact that we have asked a lot of questions about the country-specific recommendations, and we have some links with the conditionality, because you know that we have some remarks from Olaf about the fight against corruption to be very concrete. Then we have said that we start the process about the conditionality itself with the administrative letter in November. Now it was announced by the President of the Commission will send the notification, and you will see with such a notification the beginning of a formal procedure. Of course, we continue to go before the court, and it will be the case for such a law to protect the children at schools, like was said in Hungary. If we don't have enough reserves with that, of course we need to continue to use all the tools at our disposal, but we have a limitation, is the list of tools. And again, or we are going to the court with a success, or we are taking some decisions like about the recovery and resilience plan, or we will go again and again to the Council, like you have tried to do with the Article 7, and like we have said that we'll start a procedure about the conditionality. At the end, we will have to convince all the member states, or a very large part, to decide, and to decide in a good way, because you know that we need also for the conditionality a qualified majority at the end. But we have just, if I may, the tools that we have in our toolbox, and no more than that. But it's a lot of elements, and we try to use all.
Now it will be, as I have listed, Jorge Buxadé.
Gracias, presidente. Comisario, colegas, hablaré en español. Se pueden poner los cascos para oír que Hungría es una democracia plena. Hungría es un Estado de Derecho con una Constitución que garantiza los derechos de los ciudadanos húngaros, con un Parlamento que aprueba leyes de acuerdo a su Constitución y con un sistema judicial que funciona. Entre otras cosas, por eso fue admitido en la Unión Europea. Es además un país que cuenta con medios libres y que ha celebrado unas elecciones inmaculadas el pasado día 3 de abril, que yo personalmente pude observar como observador electoral de mi grupo en ese fin de semana. Unas elecciones que ha ganado Fidesz, el partido del primer ministro Orbán, con más del 50% de los votos, y que ha representado una subida del 8% con respecto a los comicios anteriores. Ya sé que a ustedes no les gustaría que existiese Orbán, ni Fidesz, ni determinados partidos, y que les gustaría legalizarnos a todos. Pero es que esto es la democracia. Todo ello a pesar de las constantes injerencias por parte de la Comisión, de este Parlamento, las amenazas de congelar los fondos, misiones de investigación que no tenían ningún interés en investigar nada y cientos de debates en este Parlamento. Y entiendo que no se han recuperado aún del golpe. Ya no les gusta la democracia. Fue la oposición la que pidió el referéndum sobre esa ley aprobada por el Parlamento. Y cuando se convoca el referéndum, entonces la oposición boicotea el referéndum. Eso Escarmentar no parece que hayan escarmentado, porque aquí estamos otra vez con el mismo cuento. Y me gustaría añadir que tanto yo como millones de europeos, como miles de representantes de esos europeos en las instituciones de la Unión y de sus Estados miembros, también creemos que no se debe sexualizar a los niños en los colegios. Lo creemos de verdad. Creemos que la banalización del sexo y la hipersexualización que se promueve produce grandes problemas. Y que Hungría no será el último país en aprobar leyes que protejan la inocencia de los niños y protejan el derecho de los padres a educar a sus hijos por encima de los lobbies. Esto es exactamente de lo que tratan las leyes a las que se hace referencia en este debate, que seguro ustedes ni se han leído. Y no de los derechos de los homosexuales, como húngaros, como polacos, como italianos, como españoles, como franceses, que están garantizados tanto en Hungría como en el resto de la Unión Europea. Lo que les debería preocupar es que, paradójicamente, cualquier homosexual va más tranquilo por la calle en Budapest que por cualquiera de esos barrios multiculturales o zonas no-go que ustedes han creado, donde allí los homosexuales sí que tienen riesgo para su vida y para su libertad. Gracias.
Sorry, are we going to allow this kind of homophobic, racist talk?
Listen.
Can we at least condemn it? Can we at least condemn it?
Listen.
Yes, and it was homophobic, racist chat.
Listen.
No, we have some values laid down in the treaties, okay? Homophobia is not one of them.
The point is that it is obvious that no question has been raised, but it's a member that has taken the floor, and the procedure says that it will be back to the Commissioner to state his response.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, about the elections in Hungary, till now we took note of the preliminary findings and conclusions of the OSCE mission, and you have seen that OSCE found that Hungary's parliamentary elections offered voters distinct alternatives and were well run, but that while competitive, the process was marked by the pervasive overlapping of government and ruling coalitions' messaging that blurred the line between state and party, as well as by media bias and opaque campaign funding. So we will wait, of course, the final report and the recommendations of the OSCE to be very concrete about the elections, and there is a difference between free and fair elections, of course. The second element is about the situation in Hungary. I don't want to repeat. You need to read the rule of law report. Just about the justice system, we have said in the rule of law report, the justice in Hungary is more and more efficient, so it's possible to go fast, it's possible to have a digitalization, but there are concerns about the independence. It's not because you are going fast and with a good digitalization of the justice system that you don't have any problem of independence, and we have put the remarks in the rule of law report. Like concerning the media, we have put the remark in the report about club radio, to be concrete, and other kind of evolutions in Hungary. But then the last point, to go back to your speech about the law to protect the children. Again, it's not because there is a majority in the parliament or a majority in the population that it's possible to organize discriminations. If we have a charter to protect the fundamental rights, it's also to protect individuals against some majorities or some government. And that's the reason why it's so important to us to go to the Court of Justice when it's needed, because we have some shared values in the treaty, in the charter, and of course, again, the protection when we are going to the court about a law, it's all the time about a law adopted by a majority. So the argument of the majority is not enough to say that there is no discrimination. And that's maybe what is important to repeat all the time. You may go to the parliament, you may go to the population with a referendum. If it's to organize discriminations, to promote homophobia, to give an example, Of course, it's unacceptable. And we have, as Commission, to react. And the best way to react about such a kind of law is to go to the Court of Justice. Until the decision, it's normal that we don't have the same vision with the Hungarian government. But if we have a positive decision on our request in the court, it will be a binding decision.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now it will go to Malin Björk.
Well, I must say that together with colleagues and with the rapporteur on Hungary, Gwendolyn Delbos-Corfield, we went to Hungary, and I mean, we were ridiculized, we were harassed, we were bashed. We were given a taste of what it is with a media landscape that is totally controlled by authoritarian government. And to hear all these homophobic and aggressive men that defend authoritarian leaders and practices here in Hungary, I mean, it just makes me sick here. Can you imagine how it is for people in Hungary, for my LGBTI community in Hungary? I mean, it's just for the migrant community in Hungary. So it is our job now to stand up. And I think we are quite tired of hearing about the toolbox, the letters, the procedure, etc. It is a fact that we haven't done enough. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this situation. We have not done enough. And that the Commission cannot admit that doesn't promise for the future. And that's what we're trying to convey to you. If you cannot even admit that we are failing, that we are failing people and we are failing ourselves, then we cannot move forward. So I'm just saying that actually this would be a message sent to our Hungarian friends, to my lesbian friends in Hungary that gave out these children's books that was taken off the shelves. We will stand by you and we will put the pressure on you and on the Council until you actually act, until you make a difference for democracy, for rule of law and for our human rights. Because this is just not good enough. And it's spreading to this House and it's spreading around the Member States if we don't stop it where it's actually being the worst, as is the case in Hungary today. Thank you.
Now, your comments.
No, I fully understand your reaction, and certainly when you have listened to some comments during your visit in a specific member state. But I want to say that if we are organizing the process with some exchange of letters and some reply and then some resolute opinion, is because it's organized by the treaties and because we try to follow the rule of law as Commission. Because if we want to be the guardian of the treaties, we will have to apply the treaties ourselves. And I'm sure that it's very important to say that it's a criticism that you have more against Hungary and the Hungarian authorities and the government than against the Commission. When you spoke about the same law, so-called law to protect the children, what is the possible reaction of the Commission? To find a legal basis, to go to the court and to say that there is a discrimination on the basis of the Charter and in relation with some EU laws. And at the end, we'll try to have a real condemnation to don't have such a law in application in Hungary. Like for academic freedom, I said, migration, asylum seekers, or NGOs. We have had positive reaction of the court. There is no link with the budget if you look to such a law, so it's not the budgetary tools that it's possible to use. But again, if we have such a long process, it's due to the treaties and the rules that we try to apply, and it's due to the fact that on our side, we try to be able to have a full respect for the rule of law. I know that there are many people reacting faster. I've said many times to many observers that we don't have at the Commission the same timeline than Twitter. It's impossible to react on the same day than a decision in the national parliament and to have a decision of the court at the end of the day. We need to follow the process. But again, I've said we have started the process very fast about such a law, and we will continue. We are analysing now the reply of Hungary, and we are very open to proceed and to go if it's to the court if it's needed, to have the same kind of decision that we have had in other files. But I fully understand your reaction when you have an immediate confrontation with such a kind of declaration that you have mentioned. But on our side, we need to follow the procedure. And it's maybe the duty of the Commission to apply the rules and to follow the rule of law, also in the reactions against some breaches to the rule of law.
Thank you. And now it'll be Balacic-Spegi. There you go.
Thank you. When I read George Orwell's 1984, some 25 years ago, I never would have thought that after this time I would experience such a session of hate as has been demonstrated here by many of the colleagues. Anyway, Monsieur le Commissaire, le fonctionnement de l'Union est basé sur la répartition des compétences et le respect des traités, même si la Commission européenne ou certains dans ce Parlement n'aiment pas cela. Il y a certains domaines où la décision appartient uniquement aux États membres. La protection des enfants et l'éducation sont des matières où l'Union n'a aucune compétence. En Hongrie, les adultes sont libres de vivre leur vie, y compris leur vie sexuelle, et de s'exprimer comme ils veulent. C'est un mensonge d'affirmer le contraire. En réalité, ces attaques contre la loi hongroise sur la protection des enfants font partie de djihad idéologique bien connus contre la Hongrie. Nous pensons que les militants LGBTQ n'ont pas leur place dans les écoles et les jardins d'enfants. Ce sujet était très important pendant la campagne électorale et les Hongrois ont apporté un soutien écrasant au parti Fidesz pour la 4e fois consécutive. Le message des électeurs hongrois était clair. Ils soutiennent la position du gouvernement et rejettent toute intervention politique de Bruxelles sur des questions où la décision appartient exclusivement à la Hongrie. Dans ce contexte, je trouve totalement inacceptable de faire chanter les États membres avec des sanctions financières pour faire avancer un programme idéologique et l'imposer aux États membres. Alors, Monsieur le Commissaire, n'êtes-vous pas d'accord avec moi qu'après la spectaculaire victoire électorale du parti gouvernemental, vous devriez peut-être respecter la volonté du peuple hongrois et arrêter cette chasse politique? Merci.
Merci. À la fin de l'envoi, il y a eu une question posée. Alors, c'est à votre tour de répondre.
Vous aurez constaté que les institutions continuent à fonctionner avec des représentants du gouvernement hongrois autour des tables des conseils, par exemple, et le résultat des élections a été acté. Je dis simplement que nous attendions maintenant le rapport final de l'OSCE dans sa mission d'observation. Ça, c'est un élément très, très concret. Mais peut-être juste 3 remarques. La première, vous dites qu'il y a eu un soutien à une politique. En tout cas, le référendum, lui, n'a pas été un succès pour les autorités hongroises, puisqu'il n'y a pas eu une participation suffisante pour dépouiller. Il n'y a donc pas eu de soutien, en tout cas massif, à la législation qui a été mise en place. C'est une première chose. Donc, mais de toute façon, je l'ai dit à plusieurs reprises aujourd'hui, ça n'a pas beaucoup d'importance. Le problème est de savoir s'il y a une discrimination ou non. Ce n'est pas de savoir si le texte est supporté par une majorité ou non. Deuxième élément, concernant la Cour de justice, d'abord, je suis heureux de constater ces derniers temps la confiance des autorités hongroises dans la Cour de justice. Parce que je présume que si l'on introduit un recours contre le règlement en conditionnalité, c'est que l'on a une confiance dans la Cour de justice pour qu'elle rende une décision en toute indépendance. La décision était favorable au règlement, donc je suppose qu'il sera respecté, et j'espère qu'on respectera les décisions à venir. Et la troisième remarque, c'est quand vous dites répartition des compétences, bien sûr, nous sommes garants de la répartition correcte des compétences. C'est d'ailleurs pour cela que nous soumettons la question, et nous voulons soumettre la question, je dis qu'on est en train d'examiner la réponse hongroise, à la Cour de justice. Parce que, vous le savez, il y a une primauté du droit de l'Union sur les droits nationaux, en ce compris d'ailleurs les dispositions constitutionnelles. Il y a une compétence exclusive de la Cour de justice pour interpréter ce droit de l'Union. Et donc, jusqu'à une décision éventuelle de la Cour sur cette législation, le gouvernement hongrois aura l'occasion de défendre une autre thèse que celle de la Commission. J'ai juste dit tout à l'heure que quand la Cour aura rendu, si nous allons devant la Cour, sa décision, cette décision sera contraignante. Et donc je suppose que, comme pour le règlement en conditionnalité, c'est une décision qui sera respectée et appliquée par les autorités hongroises. Ce que nous avons fait en matière, vous le savez, de législation concernant la liberté académique, où nous avons obtenu une décision de la Cour, ou en matière de financement extérieur des ONG, où nous avons obtenu une décision de la Cour. En matière de migration et de droit d'asile, malheureusement, nous avons obtenu une décision de la Cour, mais nous n'avons pas encore eu une application correcte par les autorités hongroises de la décision. Et donc là, il y a un vrai débat qui existe. Mais voilà ce que je peux vous dire. Donc je ne suis pas en opposition avec votre remarque sur des compétences qui sont réparties. Le tout, c'est de savoir qui est compétent Et c'est la Cour de justice, s'il le faut, qui aura à se prononcer.
Merci. Now, it's time to open a second round of speakers, but I suggest now we'll have a joint round, 1 minute each, and then it'll be back to the Commissioner before the time is over, because this morning we went through it. At a certain point of time, we ran out of interpretation cabin, not for the first time, right? So let's try our best to make it in 10 minutes. Second round and answers from the Commissioner. It'll be Thijs Reuten. 1 minute.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I must start with saying how appalled I am by the humiliating language that I hear in this House. It's truly degrading and homophobic language, and no excuse, no freedom of speech, no being elected can be an excuse to use that kind of language, because it's humiliating. And my question to you, Mr. Commissioner, thank you for being here, is if you understand that our problem is also the toolbox and the use of the toolbox. And yes, you need to use the toolbox, but we are also asking for moral leadership. We need to hear from the side of the Commission every time and again, every time that this happens, that it happens in Hungary, that it happens on the streets of Budapest, where NGOs get fined illegally. Every time we need also that moral judgment, because these people need to feel supported by you, by us, every time and again. So yes, I understand that you need to work on the legal basis. And yes, I also have a question on that, because what is now the exact timeline for triggering the rule of law conditionality? Because the letter, I assume, the letter is already on your desk for months. It must be ready there, because you are assessing the responses of Hungary, but the letter must be there. So I want to know what is the exact timeline. And yes, really, some kind of moral leadership on this kind of language, this kind of homophobic and unacceptable language that we need to provide the anti-poison for.
Thank you, Thijs. Now it will be Anna Donath.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, in 1 minute I can reflect of everything, because I would have wanted to start with to define what is hatred, because I'm sorry, but I think we have a different definition of hatred, because what is hatred is some of my friends already moved to abroad after 3rd of April because they are gay, because they want to have a family, because we are talking about 5 lives, and even if it's just my 5 friends, for God's sake, these 5 future. So I want everybody here in this room to take it seriously, that we are not just talking about referendum questions. Especially, don't call it referendum. Of course, they used it as a cover, like it would be a democratic tool. It was not a referendum. If somebody actually really read those questions, because somebody said to read what we are talking about, those referendum questions results no legal outcomes, because it's already illegal what the question was referring to. So it's only a political tool. And again, it's just the government and Fidesz talking heads, stupidity and homophobic campaign what we have to see here, because the majority of the Hungarians doesn't support, not even in this referendum. And of course they're going to use it as a tool. But I want to highlight one little thing, and this is what's regarding to the Commissioner and the rule of law issue here. There is a reason why I was working hard with my colleagues on a report on shrinking space of civil society. Because around this referendum there was something really important. A really important campaign took place by the civil society, and after that successful campaign, they were fined, each of these NGOs were fined by the National Election Committee by 8,000 euros each. Why? Because they made a campaign to vote invalidly. This is a part of freedom of expression, not just the right to vote yes or no, but also right invalidly. And I just wanted to ask you in this regard, Commissioner, that as I believe as the minority rights are being violated in Hungary, do you agree with the assessment of this? This is also addition to the breaches of the rule of law, which means that do you intend to address these issues about civil society also in the rule of law report? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Now it'll be Daniel Freund.
Thanks, Chair. Commissioner Reinders, you said here today that you're using all the tools and that you need to follow the rule of law. But in defiance of the rule of law, you have not been applying the rule of law conditionality for almost a year and a half. This is your task. the conditions in Hungary are fulfilled since the moment this regulation entered into force. You then said we're waiting for the court. The court ruled over 2 months ago. Then you said something about guidelines. The guidelines are in force since over a month. Then Commission President came to us in the plenary and said, we're going to do it. She came out of a college meeting. Why wasn't that on the agenda? Why wasn't that decided there? Why wasn't an extraordinary meeting called? There is 17 million euros going to Hungary every day. We know it's being misused. We know it was misused to buy the election. And you decided not to do anything before the Hungarian elections to protect EU taxpayer money. So when is this going to be triggered? When is the notice going out? Is it next Wednesday? Is it May? Is it June? When is this coming? And what is going to be in that notice? Because if you look at the November letters, the scope that the Commission currently is looking at, there's nothing about the independence of the judiciary. There's nothing about the composition of the Constitutional Court. Why are you reducing the scope so much so that it will be difficult to actually use this tool to the full extent? Thank you.
Thank you, Daniel. And now I will be back to the Commissioner, unless there is someone who hasn't spoken out so far and wills to do so. Hasn't spoken out. No, excuse me. You have spoken out. Usted ya ha tenido la palabra, señor Pouchet. Usted ya ha tenido la palabra. Pregunto si hay alguien más que quiera usar a 30 segundos. Si no es el caso, if that is not the case, there is no catch the eye at sight, then it'll be back to Milan Urik. I see. You have the floor.
Vážený pán eurokomisár, vážení poslanci, oznámenie Európskej komisie o začatí, nazvime to, toho trestného prenasledovania Maďarska prišlo len 2 dní po oznámení opätovného víťazstva Fidesu vo voľbách. To aj moja 5-ročná dcéra vidí, že je to jasná politická motivácia a že vedenie v Bruseli čakalo, ako dopadnú maďarské voľby, pretože som presvedčený, že keby v maďarských voľbách vyhrala liberálna opozícia, tak všetko by sa zabudlo a žiadne konanie proti Maďarsku by sa ani nespustilo. Viete, všetky tieto politické procesy, ideologické prenasledovania občanov, dokonca už aj celých štátov, vlád, vedú len k zvyšovaniu počtu konfliktov v celej Európe a aj medzi občanmi. Vidíte to sami. Veľká Británia odišla. Maďari a Poliaci sú v podstate jednou nohou z Európy vonku. Jednoducho už to musí prestať. K ničomu dobrému to nespeje. Ja som presvedčený, že aj v mene miliónov Slovákov vyjadrujem plnú podporu vláde pána Orbána v ochrane tradičných hodnôt zdravého rozumu, pokoja, mieru a stability, pretože naozaj je to jeden racionálny hlas v strednej Európe. A žiadame Európsku úniu, aby rešpektovala tú rozmanitosť jednotlivých členských štátov, o ktorej tak veľmi rada rozpráva. Ďakujem.
Okay, now back to you, to your final turn. Commissioner Reinders, there you go.
No, I've listened carefully, so I've seen two main questions. First of all, the moral and condemnation of the situation when we have homophobic speeches or decisions. And it was very clear from the beginning. We have said from the day after the decision on such a law in Hungary that the Commission strongly condemns any discrimination or violence, of course, or hatred against LGBTIQ people. I will say it's one of the reasons why we have also proposed to extend the list of the Eurocrimes in the treaty. And I've discussed with the French presidency to try to reach, again, unanimity to do that. It's not easy. Again, this is the treaty. We need unanimity. But we have started and we have discussed with all the member states about the way to do that. It's very clear. The condemnation is very clear. But if you want to have a real effect, again, you need to use one of the tools. And for such a law, I'm sure that the best tool is the infringement proceedings. And we'll continue to do that. Of course, it will be possible for the Hungarian government to say that there is no discrimination and we will have a long debate. But at the end, we'll have a decision of the court. And if the decision is in the same way that we are thinking, of course, it will be a binding decision, and we will ask to apply and to apply in all the different requirements of the court. But the condemnation is very clear, and it was said by myself, but also by the President of the Commission and by others immediately. And you know the situation that we have now, and we try to continue to use. About the timelines, the second question that I have listened. Of course, I said we have till now a blockage about the recovery and resilience plan. It's the first element on the financial discussions that we have due to the necessity to organize the reforms enshrined in the country-specific recommendations concerning Hungary. And so you have seen, it's not by coincidence that we don't have till now an approval of such a plan. And it's a blockage about financial tools. About the conditionality, it was said from the beginning that we will wait till the decision of the Court of Justice, not to do something. We have started with administrative letters in November last year, and such a basis it's possible now with the reaction of Hungary to announce the notification that will be the beginning of the formal process. When I'm not in charge of the agenda of the Commission, we have a new meeting next week, but it's a question of weeks, I'm sure. It's not a long question to know when we will start. It was announced at the beginning of the month by the President of the Commission. But again, why it was so important to wait maybe the decision of the Court of Justice? Because it was a long discussion with the Open Council in December 2020, and I've said today, when we will have one day about Hungary or about another member state to go to the Council and to have a decision in the Council, we will have to reach a qualified majority. And you need maybe to discuss also at home with your national government. We have seen that for all the members of the Open Council, it was very important to wait till the decision of the Court of Justice. Of course, it's all the time possible to do something else, but to have what kind of results? We have the legislative competence, and we act on the basis of regulation into forces the 1st of January last year. And we have said that all the facts from the 1st of January last year will be taken into account. But to go to a formal procedure and at the end to go to the Council, but it's my view, it's maybe useful to listen to the comments of the members of the Council, because, again, at the end, you will have to reach, if it's possible, a qualified majority at the Council level. So it will be useful to discuss that not only here, and I'm very happy to answer to your questions, but also in the national parliaments. Because at the end, again, when we are going to the court, we have had a success. We will see what is possible to do when we are going to the Council.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have seen again, we have experienced again on which good grounds the LIBE Committee is bound to dwell on fundamental rights and the non-discrimination clause, which is enshrined in Article 2 and 20 and 21 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights, 2 of the Treaty of the European Union, and 20 and 21 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights. And we have experienced again how hard it is to see that a discussion over fundamental rights can be divisive or can be argued about, can be arguable, can be subject to argument. A discussion on fundamental rights in the European Union, how is it possible? How would it get to this? How would it become this far? That discussing about non-discrimination can be subject to arguments within the European Parliament, which should be the house of unanimity about what fundamental rights and non-discrimination is all about. So we thank you for your points. We have completed the order of the day today, and we will be resuming our work early tomorrow by 9 a.m. back on track. Okay? Have a good evening.